See, I'm talking about fashion because that's going to be our next interview.
I don't see.
And I'm just telling
you. Anyways, coming up next, the world of fashion in Asia. Can Asia catch up with Western fashion capitals and set the trend for the rest of the world? We'll find out. Which Asian city can do it best? We'll examine this with fashion industry experts right after this break. And now fashion craze is sweeping through Singapore.
The best collections and brands from Asia are being showcased here with the Singapore Fashion Week kicking off last Friday.
Well, and this year's event is even more significant for Singapore, which has officially become the newest member of the Asian Fashion Federation, or AFF for short.
Founded by China, South Korea and Japan in 2003, AFF aims to make Asia a fashion force to be reckoned with and to provide an alternative to the current prevailing Western concepts towards fashion design.
So the question this morning, can Asia really take the lead when it comes to fashion? We'll find that out very soon, and trying to answer that will be Colin McDowell, a renowned and revered fashion critic and journalist from the UK, who's also the chair of a panel discussion at the AFF seminar, and also Hong Joo-bin, South Korea's AFF vice chairman. Very good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming in. So let's first talk about Asian powerhouses. Can Asia really take the lead when it comes to fashion and this global age?
No.
No.
And why?
No, it can't take the lead because the lead is too strongly with the West.
Is that because we sort of perceive the leaders coming from the West? In our minds, we all think that's where the ideas come from, not Asia.
No, I don't think it's that at all. I think we've just got vested interests in the West, which will make it exceedingly difficult for Asia to break into. It's not a question of whether Asia has talent or not. It's a question of the force that they have to.
So the whole
reckon with.
infrastructure is already there. It's established.
Absolutely,
It's kind of the package is all ready and set.
But they can still be part of it, of course, but they
Right.
will not take the lead.
But let's talk about the powerhouses here then, and the powerhouses in the West. What is lacking for us to catch up?
I think experience. If you think of Paris, for example, or London, and New York as well, they've had fashion for over 100 years. High fashion for over 100 years, so they've learned a great deal. They've built up very complex infrastructures, and of course they have huge conglomerates there. We all know about Gucci, we know about Dior, we know about Louis Vuitton, and Prada Group. These are mega players, and it's going to take a lot to budge them. But maybe Asia doesn't want to move them over. Asia just wants a part of the cake, and I think that can happen.
Well, Mr. Hong, hearing what Colin is saying, well, what do you say to that? Asia can never take the lead. It can just take a piece.
If you say Asian fashion take leads, and then people say may no, but in the future we have a possibility to take lead in fashion. Yes, I say. The reason is now the Japan fashion. We know what's Japan fashion very clear. The Korea, we have Korean fashion. We have traditional Korean costume, and we have drama. We have actors. We have our culture. So now the Asia we have very long history, tradition. We have different language. We have different skin, yellow, black, and lots of skins. And we have different philosophy. So now AFF is trying to get the mutual understanding in Asian countries. The Western fashion has a very, very long history.
Right.
So I think long history is very required to take
So you're
lead.
sort of saying that Asia needs to come together a bit more because, as you mentioned, South Korea may have its own unique sort of fashion sense. Japan as well has its own unique. But again, to get something that appeals to a larger audience, I mean, Colin, what do you think? Do you think that's possible? Because again, you're talking about cultures that are so different, so varied. And do these designers even want to adapt in that sense?
I can't speak for the designers. Obviously, I don't know what they want to do. But I think there's a lot to be said for joining together in a loose association. But there will never be such a thing as Asian fashion. There'll be Korean fashion, there'll be Singaporean fashion, there'll be Japanese fashion, or whatever. Just as there's no such thing as European fashion. We talk about Italian fashion, British fashion, Spanish fashion, or whatever. So if we think that by coming together as a group we can make a group story, well, we can't. And if you look at other industries, we know it doesn't happen. Japanese cars are different from German cars, for example, and they are reflecting the aesthetic of the Japanese design.
Okay, maybe they're not a joint identity, but something more lasting. Perhaps because we talked about the Indian fashion sort of hit the market for a while, but it's not so, well, you don't see it as much anymore.
I think India's a particularly complex situation because women still wear traditional dress in India much more than they do, say, here in Singapore. I don't know about Korea, but there is a problem if you're trying to create a fashion for a world outside your own world, then it's very difficult for you, clearly.
But honestly, I mean, talking about fashion and even cost for that matter, everything is becoming more universal. I mean, it's not about being Korean or being Singaporean or, you know, there's a unique ethnic culture factors coming into play. So in that sense, if Asia wants to be better represented on the global stage when it comes to fashion, maybe it should cater to the you know, the global audience.
I think one can do both, of course. One can do both. But I think it helps enormously to have a strong local interest in fashion, which I feel very strongly in Singapore. Every time I come to Singapore, I feel I'm in a fashion city, you know? Whereas to go back to India, you don't find this even in Mumbai or Delhi yet. And I do think at the end of the day, the nationality of the designer is not important. What is important is how good the designer is and whether that designer reflects the needs of a particular moment. People buy a label and often they have no idea whether it's been designed by an Italian, an American or a French person. They just think, this is right for me, this is right for now and my lifestyle. So I think, let me just say this, I think there's every possibility for designers from Asia to make their mark. And indeed many of them have already.
Well, obviously in America or in Europe, we have brands like Prada and Louis Vuitton making, you know, waves. That's why they're still the powerhouses. So how far away are we from seeing an Asian brand making such a, you know, wave?
I want to say two things. The first one, we have to understand fashion, not only clothes or some bags. We understand lifestyle culture. As a culture, I think we have some foundation of culture. So it's how far is not far, because we have very good teacher, you know, you know, the European. So we know how to follow them. So this one. And number two is in Asia, we must understand each other more. We must share our culture. So we visit the countries, each other, and try to understand. This is, I believe, shortcut to make Asian fashion.
Well, thank you so much both for coming in this morning and talking to us about Asian fashion. Well, it's very true. A group will work better than one solo.
Well, I think a group in marketing the whole idea of Asian fashion, but not particular designs. As Colin mentioned, you've got to be well, a designer. The whole idea is that you're unique in that sense, you know? So not a mass kind of product. But yes, creating an infrastructure might help. Well, thank you so much, Colin and Joo Bin, for coming in this morning.
That was Colin McDowell and Hong Joo Bin for sharing their views on Asian fashion with us.
Well, maybe you have some fashion tips out there you want to tell us. You know, maybe you don't like this tie, but then again, well, too bad, because I like it.
We're stuck with our fashion.
Last time Colin came in, he gave me a dressing down before my dress. So I tried. I couldn't remember, but he may not remember. But
okay, we're going for a quick break now. We'll be right back at 4. Thank you very much for coming in today.